at this satellite image of the Strait of Hormuz. The dark water of the Persian Gulf is pinched between landmasses, creating a passage just 29 miles wide at its narrowest point. This geographic bottleneck controls a massive portion of the global energy supply. On February 28, 2026, a joint military strike known as Operation Epic Fury triggered an immediate explosive retaliation. Iran deployed advanced rocket systems and a specialized naval force to completely blockade commercial traffic through that 29-mile gap. This diagram breaks down the volume of energy instantaneously trapped behind that blockade. On the left, we see 20 million barrels of crude oil per day. On the right, 20% of the entire world's liquefied natural gas, or LNG. LNG is natural gas that has been supercooled to liquid form to reduce its volume for transport. While crude oil can be partially rerouted through existing overland pipelines in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, natural gas cannot. It must be chilled to -260 degrees Fahrenheit and loaded onto specialized maritime vessels. When the strait closes, the flow drops to absolute zero. The physical result of this logistical trap is playing out in the Gulf waters. Massive vessels equipped with these specialized spherical tanks sit completely idle. At least 150 of these specialized carriers were forced to drop anchor indefinitely, fully unable to move their cargo to market. Industrialized nations have constructed their power grids and economies around a highly rigid transoceanic supply chain. When a single maritime choke point is severed, there is no backup system to replace the lost energy. The trapped LNG was originally destined for two highly dependent regions. Europe desperately needs it to refill storage reserves depleted over the winter. Meanwhile, Asian economies rely on the strait for roughly 90% of their total natural gas supply. This global map tracks the physical diversion of LNG shipments. As spot prices for natural gas spike, you can see cargo ships originally bound for Asian ports rerouting toward European terminals. Wealthier European nations are aggressively outbidding developing countries for the few remaining cargoes available on the open market. Developing nations cannot match those bids. In countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh, the sudden absence of imported gas has led to immediate rolling blackouts and the total shutdown of domestic textile and manufacturing sectors. These power grids suffer from energy fungibility risk. Fungibility risk means that a specific resource, like natural gas, cannot be easily or quickly substituted with an alternative, like coal or solar power, because the physical infrastructure is designed exclusively for burning gas. The blockade has effectively weaponized the mechanics of global trade. The sheer scarcity of the resource forces poorer nations to absorb the physical shortages and go dark, ensuring that wealthier nations can keep their lights on. This satellite image displays the Ras Laffan Coastal Processing Complex in Qatar, the world's second-largest LNG exporter. Beyond generating electricity, natural gas serves as a raw chemical feedstock for heavy industry. A drone strike on this specific facility severely damaged two production trains, instantly removing 17% of the nation's output capacity. That lost processing capacity has severe downstream effects. Natural gas is the primary ingredient used to manufacture urea. Urea is a nitrogen-based compound that functions as the world's most widely used agricultural fertilizer. The disruption occurred precisely at the start of the crop planting season in the Northern Hemisphere. The resulting 34% price spike in granular urea has made fertilizer unaffordable for farmers in regions like sub-Saharan Africa, creating a supply gap that the World Food Program warns could push an additional 45 million people into acute hunger. The shutdown of these processing plants triggered another highly obscure third-order effect, a sudden global shortage of helium. Commercial helium is extracted as a direct byproduct of the LNG cooling process. Because Qatar is such a dominant player in natural gas processing, it also controls approximately 1/3 of the global helium supply. This gas is critical for modern healthcare and technology. It is required to cool the superconducting magnets in MRI machines and to maintain the vacuum environments necessary to manufacture silicon wafers for microchips. Tech giants like TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, and Samsung are now operating on precarious 6-month helium stockpiles. The removal of LNG from the global supply chain throttles food production and places an expiration date on digital architecture, all while the power grid goes dark. These cascading shortages across the energy, agriculture, and technology sectors quickly hit Western financial markets. The surge in energy-driven import costs triggered broad systemic inflation, causing immediate declines across major indices. To stave off a global recession, the International Energy Agency ordered emergency demand-side interventions. These mandates included reducing motorway speed limits and enforcing remote work to actively suppress fuel consumption. For years, policymakers framed natural gas primarily as a bridge fuel, a temporary, lower-emission stepping stone meant to hold the grid together while the world transitioned from coal to renewable energy. The 2026 blockade proved that categorization was too narrow. Natural gas operates as the master commodity of industrial civilization. It is the invisible, highly specialized physical input that simultaneously sustains our electricity generation, our agricultural yields, and our high-tech manufacturing. The 2026 crisis ended the era of cheap, just-in-time globalized energy. With no spare capacity and no strategic reserves for LNG, transitioning to resilient domestic renewables is now a mandate for sheer economic survival.